Hello folks, welcome back to my channel. I am the Lone Adventurer and today we are looking at A Wayfarer's Tale. Now this is a roll and write game for one player or more than one player, and it's a game that is coming to Kickstarter before too long. I think I don't have an exact date. I suspect the designer will pop up in the comments to let us know. I haven't been able to find a Kickstarter launch page for it either, but there is a group on Facebook if it's a game you think you'll be interested in. I've played a couple of games and I'm definitely interested in it. So it's by a designer called James Emerson, and it's illustrated beautifully by a chap called Tristram Rossin. Now this is the rule book. Did I say it's print and play? If I didn't, it is. It's print and play. So one of those wonderful Kickstarters where you back it and then a few weeks later, rather than a few years later, you have everything you need to play the game. So I'm going to do a couple of videos. I'm going to do one introducing the system, and I'm going to do another that is a playthrough. Now, both of these videos are really going to focus on this game as a solo experience. It has fairly extensive solo rules at the back of this rulebook, which turns it into a solo campaign game. So we'll have a little look. I'll explain how it works, and then we'll have a playthrough. So this is an example of one of the maps that the game comes with. This is map number 2. I've been playing on map number 1. I'll show you that in a minute. But the playthrough that will follow this explanation will be using map number 2. And let me just bring this closer to the camera so you can have a look at how lovely the artwork is. It really is pretty to look at. My intention is to laminate some sheets. I've been practicing and playing on the black and white versions. There are low ink versions of these sheets. When I do the playthrough, I'm going to be writing directly on this nice colour version. I didn't laminate it in advance because I thought maybe it would be a bit too shiny and you wouldn't be able to see on the video what's going on. And read the introductory text here that we've got. Being lost is not always the burden it might seem to be. Some of us were born for the wild unknown. We few who live for the sights unseen and the paths untrodden. But our journeys are not made alone. We find strength in our companions and courage in our friends. A journey awaits. A world of wonders just waiting to be witnessed beyond the horizon. For only in discovering the world can we begin to discover ourselves. Lovely. So here we go. Aim of the game is to visit towns, discover treasure, and avoid monsters. Avoid monsters as much as possible. Sometimes you have to tactically encounter monsters, I would say. So essentially we start in one of these towns on this map and we move around the map attempting to get to these other towns, usually I think, which are further away from this central area, at least on this map. I haven't really looked closely at the other maps. I think there's at least 2 other ones, so there's 4 maps in total. There might be more, but at least 4. So yeah, you're moving around the map and using the towns as a base. So you have to move in a straight line each round. Each roll of the dice you move from one hex to an adjacent hex, and so on and so on. And it has to be in a straight line. You can't double back. You can't cross over an existing line. So you have to sort of tactically plan your routes around the map. And towns can act as route hubs. So if you're in a town, you can have little routes going off in all directions. Also on this map we've got some gems, and we've got some shields. Shields help you reduce the risk of monsters, and gems help you increase the value of gems. We've also got these little statues, but those are not used in the solo game. We've actually got a little rule down here for the multiplayer game related to the statues, but we're going to be ignoring that. What else have we got on here? Yeah, we've got this little area here for tracking towns. Tracking the towns that you found, because the aim is to find all of the towns. Normally, sometimes the aim varies. So every time we encounter a town, we're going to be crossing them off up here. And actually we can use that as sort of a currency to allow us to re-roll dice and things like that. But we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that when we actually do a playthrough. Now down here we've got a key of the different types of adventurer who can help you out. And this brings us into the main core mechanic and onto the other main sheet that you have to use when you're playing this game. Okay, so we've got the map sheet and we've got the adventurer sheet, I guess you would call it. Companions. The game refers to these people as companions, and this is the low ink version. So there's also a lovely colourful version of this and every other sheet in the game, but I chose to do the low ink version of this sheet. Each companion allows you to travel to different types of terrain on the map, so let's go through them one at a time. The Coachman, he allows you to travel to grassland and to mountains. The Merchant allows you to travel to grassland and to desert. The Guide allows you to travel to jungle and desert. And the Adventurer allows you to travel to mountains and jungle. Oh, and I almost forgot, the Sailor allows you to travel to water spaces. So you can see here the majority of these these are not hexes around the side. This is just outside of the game area. But you can see some of the watery areas are hexes, and the Sailor allows you to travel into those hexes. And not only do they each have a different terrain option that they open up to you, they each have a different way of using the dice. So you have to use the dice in a certain way to activate each companion. So in the solo game, we will roll 3 dice. I think you roll more in the multiplayer game. You have 2 dice of one colour and 1 dice of another colour. And the way it works is you have to add up 2 of these dice. Now if you add up the regular dice, that is all fine and good. So here we would have 7, and we would have 7 to put in one of these locations to activate one of these dudes, one of these companions. However, if you want to use the other dice, which has a name, it's called the active player dice, so that's makes more sense in a multiplayer setting, but we have the dice in the solo game as well. But if you want to use that dice, so for example if I wanted a 4 or if I wanted a 9, then there is a consequence, and the consequence is you cross off one of these boxes in the monster area, which we haven't talked about yet. Now, if all of the boxes in the monster area are used, either because you've crossed them off or because you've encountered a monster and you've had to write a number in there, which we haven't got to yet either, but if all those boxes are crossed off, then the game is over and you might have lost. So there is an issue in using those dice. So as much as possible, it's worth sticking to the regular dice. So what we do is we roll the dice, and there we go. We've got either a 6, or we could have a 9, or we could have a 5. But my instinct would always be to go with the same coloured dice. So we have a 6. And then we would have to look here and work out where we're going to put our 6. But not only where can we put our 6, can we put our 6 next to a companion that would actually help us get to where we're trying to go at that particular time. All of this will make a lot more sense when we're actually doing the playthrough. So for now, I'll just very quickly run through how you can write the dice numbers on each of these locations, for each of these companions rather, and we'll also have a little chat about scoring monsters and treasure and how you score at the end of the game. So the Coachman, each number has to be the same or higher than the previous numbers. And that means that when you start, and you have to start on the left and go to the right. So an ideal situation here would be to write a 2 or a 3 early on, because that means you get to keep going. If you wrote a 9 or a 10, then it'd be very difficult to keep rolling numbers equal to or greater than that as you continue to the right. When you hit these lines, you can't go any further unless you have located one of the, I think they're a tavern. So if you've located a tavern, i.e. you've been into a hex with a tavern, then that opens up the next section for you to be able to use, and then there'll be another tavern somewhere, there it is, and that will open up the next section of the Coachman. So that's the Coachman, wonderful. The Sailor, you have to roll doubles. So if you rolled a 4 and a 4, then you could write an 8 up here, and then you could use the Sailor to move into a watery hex. With the Merchant, you need to roll the number to put it in the row or column of that number. So if, for example, I rolled a 6, I could put a 6 anywhere along here, or just cross. I think it doesn't really matter. So cross that out if you get a 6, and then you can use the Merchant. And then if I got a 10, I could cross somewhere along the 10 row, and then I could use the Merchant. The Guide, you have to write a dice total in that is greater than or equal to the number stated. So here you can write any number that is 5 or greater, here any number that is 7 or greater, and they don't have to be higher than the previous number, they just have to be the same or greater than the number above that square. So there you go, and then that would allow you to use the Guide. The Adventurer, you have to start down at the bottom of the mountain and then work your way up and down and up and down and up and down, and each number has to be, on the way up, it has to be higher than the previous number. So best case scenario is, I guess, you write a 2 there, then the next number has to be higher, then the next number has to be higher, then as you're going down, each number has to be lower than the previous number, like that. Right. Then when you start a new little mountain, the number can be whatever it is, doesn't matter. You obviously don't want to write a number that's too high. If I jumped to 11 there, then the next number would have to be a 12, and then you'd have to wait until you rolled a 12 or created a 12 in some way, because there are ways you can change the dice. You might have noticed as we were going that you have some jewels on here and you have some monsters on here. Now for the coachman, the sailor, the guide and the adventurer, what that means is whenever you write a number in a box linked to a jewel, then that number becomes the value of a treasure that will count towards your score at the end. So you're always trying to write the biggest possible number in the boxes linked to gems, so you can rack up that treasure score as much as you can. Now if you write a number in a box with a monster, say we'd worked our way along here, we'd rolled a 7, we'd used the 7 to activate the guide, we have a monster here, and we would have to write that 7 over here. And any monster value that any value you write in here for a monster that you've encountered, that is subtracted from your final score. So you're trying to get the treasure numbers high and the monster numbers as low as possible. And that is more or less it. There's also a solo campaign sheet to have a look at, and I think we'll do that at the start of the next video because it's sort of part of the setup of the game. There's just a couple of other details to cover. Over here we have a misroll section, and so if you roll and you literally can't place it anywhere, you cross off one of these boxes, you have 3 chances and then the game is over. As we're moving around the map, I mentioned earlier you could be collecting jewels, and when you collect a jewel you mark or circle one of these re-roll symbols in the treasure section, and that means that I forgot to talk about the merchant. So I told you about how monsters and jewels work for the coachman, the sailor, the guide and the adventurer, but I didn't tell you about the merchant because he's a little bit different. When you cross off a monster on the merchant, then you need to roll 1d6. 1. That's good, because that means I only get a 1 value monster down here taken away from my score at the end of the game. So that's how that works. You have to roll a dice. And then if you complete a row or you complete a column, like so, then you also get to do the same thing for a jewel. So there you go, that would give me a 4-point jewel, like so, and that would contribute to my score at the end of the game. Now, both of those dice rolls can be re-rolled. And what allows you to do that is the gems and the shields you are collecting on the map. Whenever you go into a hex with a gem or a shield, you circle that, or you circle the shield for the monster, and then when you do that roll, if for the treasure, there you go, perfect, if for the treasure I'd roll something really low, I could use that re-roll and get a 5, and then that would be better. 5 points is better than 1 point. So that's what the gems and the jewels or gems, I need to, before I do the playthrough, I'll make sure I know whether they're jewels or gems in the parlance of the game. But anyway, so that's the shields and the gems, and how they allow you to do re-rolls. And then at that point I think we are very close to actually knowing pretty much everything that's going on here. There might be a couple of other things that I've missed. When you have finished, when you've completed the objective, which ordinarily, but not always, is to get to all the towns, then you do the scoring here. Now we actually pretty much ignore this for the solo game. In the multiplayer game you get 5 points per town, and you get 3 points per town on your longest route. A little bit like Ticket to Ride all of a sudden. But in the solo game, you just get points for treasures, and then you get negative points for monsters. Plus there's another score depending upon the scenario that you have to subtract from it, and then that's your total. If you've got a positive score, then you've essentially won. If you fail to complete the scenario, then you lose a set amount of points. Now I've managed to complete both of my scenarios. Maybe I'll just quickly, finishing off, I'll show you map number 1. Now you might be able to see on this, hopefully, all the arrows. So I think I started at this city here, and then I gradually formed routes going out to the different areas, to the different towns, as I explored. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next video. We're going to be exploring map number 2 and playing through a game of the Wayfarer's Tale. So I hope you enjoyed that little introduction to the game. It might seem complicated, but it's not. Once you start playing, it's literally, you roll the dice, you write the number next to a companion, you draw an arrow on the map into a new hex, and then you're done. There might be some monsters or treasure to deal with, but other than that, you just roll the dice again, you do the companion, you do the hex, and then you just keep on going. The game loop is so straightforward that that really does help mitigate the complexity in other aspects of the game. And the other thing that I would say, in terms of possibly thinking this looks a little bit complicated, is the rulebook is just an absolute delight. Like, really easy to understand, really clear, really logical, really good to refer to. And so just one read through of the rulebook and you'll be ready to go. But thank you for watching this far. Please do join me in the next video to watch a playthrough of this new game, A Wayfarer's Tale, which is coming to Kickstarter soon. I am the Lone Adventurer. Please take a moment to like this video and to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content just like this. Thanks very much. Bye bye.